Hi, and welcome to Ease and Flow Yoga for Healing. I'm really excited to dive into our podcast today on how Kaiut Yoga can be used as a mindfulness practice for managing both physical and emotional pain. I'm here today with my parents, Mark and Susan Vandepoel. They both practice Kaiut Yoga regularly, and I'm really eager to hear about their experiences and insights on how the practice has impacted them, both physically and emotionally. So welcome, Mom and Dad. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
So to start off, for anyone who may not be familiar, could you both share how you first got introduced to Kaiut Yoga and then also what's made you stick with it throughout the years?
Hi, this is Susan. I got into Kaiut Yoga after hearing about Mark's experience for over a year at that time, which he'll explain further, and his excitement around the practice. One of the students from his class in town came to our community club and started teaching it 2 days a week. So I've been going about a year and a half, maybe almost 2 years, every week for 2 days a week.
And that was Deidre, who we spoke with last time on the podcast, correct?
Yes. Yeah, Deidre McElveen. She'd been a Pilates instructor for over 30 years. She brought Pilates to Boulder.
What kind of made you stick with it? What made you keep returning to the mat?
It's oddly addictive. I've heard some of the students in the class say that they don't get anything out of it or they feel like they're doing nothing. And I think it really depends on, your own body and how hard you push yourself. But there's an addictive quality to it because it's almost, for me, a competition just with myself to see each time how much sort of more I can get out of my body and how much more I can still my mind.
Yeah, I kind of felt like that at first when I started doing Kaiut, that, I wasn't getting much out of it, and we're doing these micro movements and I couldn't really see the difference because it's different than other forms of yoga where, it's very strenuous or cardio based. But then I think once I introduced that mindfulness practice into it, from what I learned in my class, I could see the benefit because it was not only helping, myself stay in the present moment, but also connect to my body and what it needed for that day to help my mobility throughout the day.
There's a lot of older people. You're fortunate to be young, but as we age, we get pain and get stuck in certain areas. And I think that Kaiut lends a little, maybe, I don't know. How do you feel about the age, Mark?
Well, let me just first say that I've been in the practice almost 3 years now, and I started in a studio in town in Boulder, and I've been primarily seeing the same instructor over the 3 years. I first started really kind of intensive, going 5 days a week, and now it kind of backed off a little bit, and yeah, just for time reasons. I would love to still go back 5 days a week, but I go 3 days a week now. And I'm almost at my 3-year mark of doing the practice.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's something that I look forward to on a daily basis. When I go there, I really look forward to the hour of just my own time and trying to working on a lot of rigidity that I have in my body. And over the 3 years, I've noticed big improvements in my flexibility, the mind training that it gives you.
Speak about that mind.
The mind training part of it. So yeah, part of the practice is you're going into this parasympathetic mode, going into these long poses where you're attacking these areas of rigidity, specifically in your feet, your hips, and your shoulders, your hands. They don't want you to move to like places of pain, but they want you to move to places of where you're uncomfortable. Right. And oftentimes when you're in these places, you start attaching all this emotion to these feelings. And the practice kind of teaches you to be present with those emotions, So yeah, that part of the mind training is a big benefit.
So you use it for chronic pain. Could you tell us more about like what specific issues you're dealing with regarding that, kind of how pain manifests in your own body, and maybe how Kaiut Yoga helps manage that pain or improve, long-term mobility?
Yeah, so like I said, you're moving into these areas of rigidity where you don't get a lot of blood flow. And part of the practice, a lot of it is circulation. So you'll see a lot of people at Kaiut Yoga putting their legs up on the wall for extended periods of time, sometimes 30 to 45 minutes,
Wow.
where you start to lose kind of all feeling in your legs. So yeah, that's kind of a challenge, and at first your body kind of freaks out over that of that kind of a feeling of losing all this blood flow.
Mine
But
definitely has.
yeah,
Yeah.
so that's part of the mind training part of it too, where you can kind of set aside, the emotion that you kind of attach with those kind of feelings. So there's a lot of benefit to the circulation in your body when you have your legs up on the wall. You're trying to move all the blood to these. So you're doing movements in your feet with your legs up the wall.
What are the physical issues that kind of manifest in your own body?
I've had 3 knee surgeries. Every body is different. So you see it in the class with the 30 or 40 people that you have in a class. Everyone is kind of tailor-made. Everyone has a different history of injuries, of illness, of different things manifesting in their body. And that for me, it's mostly this rigidity that I have in my hips and in my knees. Through the 3 years, I've gone from a body of really being very inflexible to
Like
having
very stiff.
yeah, very
Yeah.
stiff, to having a lot more freedom of movement.
Would you agree with that, Mom? Do you use it for chronic pain or do you use it for other things?
Well, I found out after being in Kaiut, I had what I thought was a knee issue, and I went to the orthopedic, and they said it was actually my hip, mostly my left hip. And I feel that through Kaiut, I've really worked on that, and I don't feel any pain anymore.
That's
I have to be
awesome.
honest. Deidre, that we talked about, who teaches my 2 days a week, had a double hip replacement, and she doesn't recommend that to anyone. So I'm just going to keep working on my hip as much as I can, my hips. The thing about me is the opposite of Mark is that I'm overly flexible.
Right.
So I'm very open in my hips. And I have to, and Deidre reminds me to say we're sitting and our hips are wide open, legs to the side. I want to lift my legs or my knees up a little bit to not be so open, because that can be an issue as well, is being too open.
I've definitely, because I've got that kind of hyper flexibility from you, and I've definitely felt some difficulty with that myself. How have you noticed, either one of you can answer, how Kaiut Yoga has kind of influenced your emotional state rather than physical?
The method kind of has a meditative quality about it. So the hour that you're in there trying to get into this, and as I mentioned before, this parasympathetic mode where you're dropping the rhythm in your body. And apparently the body responds to healing a lot better in this parasympathetic state than when you're in this more of a sympathetic state, which is more of your fight or flight kind of state. That meditative quality part of the practice has a huge benefit just for the hour of just having your own hour to yourself and dropping all the hustle and bustle of your day.
Right. Has it helped with anything, any emotional difficulties for you, Mom?
Yes, I've had to, and I've talked about and thought about the need for other participants, which you look at in the class, you see what other people are doing, and you try to block that out. You try to close your eyes. And I've wrestled with how members of the class, because in mine it's mostly the same people, don't internalize the practice, and they need to let out grunts and noises and laugh and different things like that. And you have to, almost like meditation, learn how to tune that out,
Right.
tune out the voices also in your head, on both ends, telling you you're doing well or not doing well.
Your own voices as well, because, you
Yeah.
know, in our class, we've studied this professor. His name is John Kabat-Zinn. He kind of talks about mindfulness and non-judgment, where mindfulness is the act of not judging yourself and others, but also not judging that you might judge others or yourself at the same time. Do you feel that way during?
I do. I have that personality, so I have to remind myself that I'm not the teacher.
Right.
And I don't have to, everyone is there kind of to teach me, but I'm not the teacher. So I'm off duty. Like, I don't have to worry about what anyone else is saying or doing. Mm-hmm. And that in and of itself is a really great part of Kaiut.
Right.
Even if you're just laying with your legs up the wall and thinking about not thinking. Mm-hmm. Is, I think, really important. I do it only 2 days a week, and I wish it was more. So in those 2 days a week, though, that's what I feel like I really get from it.
Right. Have either of you introduced kind of a breathing technique into your practice, or a meditation practice into Kaiut? Because, you know, breathing techniques or, you know, meditative states can also activate the parasympathetic nervous system.
For me, there's a lot of listening going on. So you're in a quietness, almost a sleepiness.
Right.
For me personally.
Which also seems like a meditative practice, listening almost.
I really try to shut my eyes. Mark told me that early on, and not look at other people and really just concentrate on her voice. But she is speaking, and in my case, a lot. She talks a lot. So
does that distract you?
The only time it can be distractive, but again, it's good because you're learning and you're working on it,
right,
is a lot of the joking. I have a teacher who likes to be the center. And that again is a teaching moment for me, to let a little more fun into it and not just push my rules in my head about what it is. Meditative wise, I need to listen.
Practice any sort of breathing techniques? I know that you've studied breathing.
I did a breath work class in like the Calabasas area with JP Creamy for 3 days, but and I like Wim Hof a lot, but she does some good like Ujjayi breathing in the beginning, which is nice, and then we slow it down, and then at the end, right before sort of namaste, we do a little breathing just to get back into our body. But other than that, I'm really concentrating on not being in pain.
Dad, do you use any breathing techniques or meditation practices in your method?
So the instructor in the studio that I go to, they kind of say that the poses kind of will determine kind of your breathing. So there's different poses that you're in where, let's say your body's twisted in a certain direction where there's a lot of pressure on your organs. During those times, your breath isn't as deep as it normally is when you're just laying on your back. So just by going through the different poses, your breathing is altered. Right. And so they teach you kind of not to really focus on any sort of specific breathing technique while you're doing it, and just let the poses dictate kind of your breathing as you're going through the class.
That's a good point.
Yeah, the important point is trying to just move, like it's really about moving into this more calm parasympathetic mode.
Right.
It's a more involved yoga rather than the down dog, up dog, sort of sun salutation, sort of the normal maybe power or vinyasa.
Right. Do you guys have any favorite poses that are kind of integral to Kaiut but maybe aren't as used in just like a regular kind of power flow yoga? Like, what poses would you say are different in Kaiut than they are in other yoga practices you've done?
Well, For Kaiut Yoga, there's 100 different that the person that started Kaiut, the method, he's developed 100 different classes. So that's the part I enjoy, is the variety. So that every class, you go through 100 different classes before you see the same class again.
Oh, wow.
So that variety in the different the different classes that you go to every time, I really enjoy. Not going to a yoga class where every time I go in there, you're doing the same movements over and over.
Right, right.
I love I talked about the hip, but I love the pulling. I don't know if it has a name. You are on your back, your legs are up the wall, you're pulling a knee into your chest, and you are massaging the femur in the pelvis and massaging the hip in and out. So you're going to the left of chest, to the right, almost to the shoulder, and in and out in these sequences. I love how that feels, and it's probably because of my hip issues. Those are really nice.
Closing out the podcast, for anyone listening that might be dealing with chronic pain or emotional challenges, or just simply thinking about joining the Kaiut Yoga method for the first time, what advice would you give them?
My advice would be is that if you're looking for just to go into these classes, and in 2 or 3 classes that you solve all your emotional and physical issues that you have with your body, then you give yourself some more patience. It really takes years of this practice to really see the benefit. So I think that'd be my advice, just to keep on going to classes, and then over time, over months and months of regular practice, is where you're really going to start to see the benefit of Kaiut Yoga.
I agree. And not to have preconceived notions about the fact that it's yoga, and perhaps you're more inclined to the poses that you've done or heard of before, or the style of yoga. One of it being that the teacher is not doing the poses.
Right.
The teacher's walking around and usually whispering in your ear and figuring out how she can maybe use supports, sandbags.
Yeah, that's a big difference between.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're not doing the poses, which I really like. And just know that, yes, it is working, and try to work, as hard as you can for your body. But once you start, the practice is very addictive. So
yeah,
good luck.
Well, thank you so much, Mom and Dad, for sharing your experiences. And it's just been really powerful to hear about, how Kaiut Yoga has supported both of you in totally different ways. Very inspiring. And then to anyone, who's listening, if you're dealing with chronic pain or emotional stress, we all encourage you to try Kaiut and see how it may help you cultivate, both physical and emotional healing. So thank you so much for tuning in.
Thanks for having us today.